Well, hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here in our world headquarters, and I'm sort of jumping into the live stream, which is normally David Menzies' turf. David, thanks for letting me join.
Oh, well, thank you, Ezra. Due to technical difficulties, Sheila Gunn Reid could not join us from Alberta, which is a shame because today is National Airplane Day, Paper Airplane Day, I should say, and I had a really funny joke about that, which I will just skip in the process of efficiency because you're giving me that look.
No, I can only imagine. And I mean, earlier today, I rolled out one of my dad jokes, and people didn't laugh, so I said the joke a second time, and people didn't laugh, so I said it a third time. And then people, thought, okay, let's give him a courtesy laugh. And there's an enormous, long, awkward pause. So I know what it's like, David.
Thank you. Thank you for feeling my pain.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be back here. Over the weekend, I mean, Toronto, there's got about 200,000 Jews in Toronto. And every year, and this is going back more than 50 years, there's something called Walk with Israel. And it's just what it sounds like. It's a walk. The Jews just walk down. There's this big street in Toronto called Bathurst Street. And along that street, for miles, within a few blocks of each side, I think is half the Jewish population in the city. And it really is a Jewish street. There's lots of kosher restaurants and synagogues along there. And it's also, by the way, been a street along which there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of anti-Semitic incidents over the last year. And when I mean incident, I'm just thinking of one of them, and Olivia or Ephraim, maybe you can grab this footage. Literally at the start of where the walk is, Temple Sinai, that was hit again and again with vandalism and a little bit of arson. I don't know if you guys remember when I went to Temple Sinai. That was literally the start of the walk. And then you went 2 blocks over and there's a no-frills grocery store, but there was sort of school bus parking behind it. That was another, a Jewish school bus. The school bus itself is not Jewish, but it's for a Jewish school. Torched, arson. Like literally every block or two along this route has been the site of a crime. I'm not talking about someone using mean words. I'm talking about arson, mischief, vandalism, trespass, assault, and not too far away. Yeah, that's it right there. If you can put that on the main, there's me, and there's the no frills, and there is the school bus absolutely torched.
Jeez.
And, I remember I heard about that. People say school bus catches fire. I love that. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, school bus catches fire. CTV, that's what they said. Hey, guys, it just caught fire. Spontaneous combustion. Hey, guys, did anyone tell you that, firefighters were called on the scene on Wilson Avenue? And anyhow, I went down there. So that's Bathurst Street. For 2 or 3 generations, Bathurst Street has been home to a great number of Jews in Toronto. And for the last few years, it's been the home of an enormous number of anti-Semitic crimes. And it's more than bad words to torch the school bus. So the Jews walked that street, and a decade or two ago, every Jew, let's say 50,000 Jews. Yesterday, I understand there were 56,000 Jews. I don't know how they counted. Every politician on every party would go there to see and be seen. It would be, once a year. It's a couple hours. You go, you take your photos there. It's your way of saying to the Jewish community, "I want your vote. I want your money."
Yeah.
But the mayor was not there, the premier was not there, the prime minister was not there. I didn't see any liberal cabinet ministers there because that old math has changed.
Yep.
There's still 200,000 Jews in Toronto, which is what there were 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But there's now, 2 million Muslims in Canada, and thankfully not all of them are anti-Semitic, and many of them just want to live their lives. But if you bring over hundreds of thousands of people from Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan, Bangladesh. These are countries that are endemically anti-Semitic, 95% according to Pew surveys. And many of those places are terrorism hotbeds too. Canada has recently started taking in refugees from Gaza, perhaps the worst decision in the history of immigration. There's a reason why Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, right there in the region, do not take any Palestinians. There's a reason for that, David.
Yep.
So my point is, yesterday was a huge, you can see on the screen right now, an absolutely huge turnout, 56,000 Jews and righteous Gentiles, allies of the Jews. But this, you see this area here, this is sort of a choke point where on either side of the street, about 100 Hamas activists set up with loudspeakers, and the police protected them, supported them, were their concierge,
Yep.
while they screamed anti-Semitic abuse at the people. And the police actually narrowed the road there. Bathurst Street is 4 lanes. They made it 2 lanes. So the Jews had to go through this choke point, this gauntlet, where on either side, screaming foreigners shouted anti-Semitic craziness. The police had set aside a counter-protest zone for them.
Correct.
But they laugh at the police.
Yep.
The police do their bidding, not the other way around. And the Jews had a permit. Some of these most of them had their faces covered, terrorist style. Some of them were dressed in military style, camouflage. Some of them seemed to have things strapped to their body. I understand someone had a fake grenade, although I didn't see that myself. And the cops just rolled with it. So the cops were there to assist the Hamas protesters by narrowing the path so the Jews had to go through on 2 lanes so they could be properly shouted at. And the cowardly mayor, premier, prime minister, liberal cabinet ministers were all nowhere to be seen. Because I'm not saying they hate the Jews, but they love the votes and the political power of the millions of new migrants that Trudeau and now Mark Carney has brought to Canada, many of whom hate Jews. And so these guys can count. And by the way, the feeling is mutual. One of the only ridings in the Greater Toronto area to flip from liberal to conservative was the Jewish neighborhood of York Centre in which this march happened.
Yep.
And Yaara Sachs, a cabinet minister, was turfed in favor of Roman Baber, a conservative. And so you can sort of understand it. But really, what do the Liberals care? There's tons of votes in Scarborough, in Mississauga. So you lose a couple of seats in the Jewish ridings, but you make it up tenfold in the anti-Semitic ridings.
Well, Ezra, to me, I think you're absolutely right. It's, as they say, just business, baby. They've done the math. They know there are 5 times as many Muslims as there are Jewish voters. And I echo what you say, that not every Muslim subscribes to a terrorist agenda. But I think there is a conceit with our politicians about that. I think Olivia Chow, I think the pro-Hamas set is part of her base, as a matter of fact. Doug Ford, this is absolutely disgraceful. More than 7 years ago, I remember him saying about the annual Jew hate fest known as the Al-Quds Day March.
Right.
Not on his watch.
Yeah.
Remember that? You're not going to get anywhere near Queen's Park. Well, guess what? Those demonstrators, they come right into Queen's Park. And the numbers are staggering. The Jewish population in Toronto, the Greater Toronto area, less than 4%. But last year, more than 40% of the hate crimes were directed towards Jews. And to your point of bringing in people that don't really share Western values into our dominion, I think this is a scathing indictment, Ezra, that official state multiculturalism, which came into being in 1971 under Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre, it's a disaster. Basically, the unspoken deal was come to Canada from wherever you are. Take advantage of our social programs. Pursue the Canadian dream. What we ask is simply this: behave. Don't break the law. Don't import age-old hatred into our country. And Ezra, I'm telling you, when I cover these pro-Hamas demonstrations with the Palestinian flags, with the chants for genocide, the display of swastikas, the smoke bombs going off, I don't even think I'm in Toronto, the city of my birth, anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe when you've grown up in Toronto the Good or you've lived here for a long time, but great cities can fall.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not just talking about Rome. I'm talking about Paris. I'm talking about London. I'm talking about Malmo, Sweden. I'm talking about Vienna. These are amazing cities that, I mean, Vienna is one of the most astonishingly beautiful cities. It was the seat of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Yeah, that was then, buddy. I mean, demographics is destiny. That is an Islamic town.
Yeah.
And I was in Malmo, Sweden. I spent a day there. Can you dig up that video? I'm not sure who there is there, Olivia or Efron. Can you dig up a video I did 10 years ago now? So I had more hair and it was darker. I went to a city called Malmo, which is just across the water from Copenhagen. And I went to a neighborhood called Rosengard, which was sort of designed as a low-income place for students a generation ago. I saw, other than some security guards, I saw one Swede in my entire day there. And I sort of saw her and I ran up to her. I said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And can you guys find that Malmo video? I don't know if you want to search Malmo or search Sweden, but it was just such an incredible. It was a long form. It was a whole show, probably back in 2015. Anyway, if you guys can find it, I want to show that. Just to say, you might think, well, Toronto is amazing. Toronto is huge. Toronto has so much inertia. You can't change Toronto. You can't wreck Toronto. Yeah, you can.
Oh, Ezra, I remember in 1987, Peter Ustinov, he said Toronto is New York as run by the Swiss. Those days are long gone, let me tell you. And it's not just the hatred we see in the streets, it's the graffiti, the litter, the city just seems dirty. The congestion is actually making people move out of Toronto. Yeah, to go like 8 kilometers might take you over an hour at certain times.
Looks like they found me talking to the last Swede in Malmo. Look at how young I look. Oh, who's that cutie pie with all that hair? Yeah, go ahead and play the clip. This is me encountering the last Swedish woman in Malmo. I swear she was the only Swede I saw. And Malmo was a mighty town. Take a look.
You're from originally?
Mid Sweden.
One of the things we're talking about is migration to Europe, and Malmo seems to have a lot of migrants, especially Muslim migrants. What do you think of that?
I think maybe they should deal with it better, but still we need them.
For what? What does Sweden need them for?
Because Swedish people don't make any babies.
And
who will take care of us when we are old, if not immigrants?
And how will they take care of you?
Work at, hospitals or, old people homes, stuff like that. Swedish people don't want to clean after other people, so if they don't do it, somebody have to do it.
How about the combination of Muslim culture and Swedish culture? They seem pretty different on things like women's rights and gay rights and things like that.
Hopefully we can turn them around.
And how's that going so far?
I have some colleagues and it's doing fine. No problem at all.
I was talking to some Somali men who tell me that they have a lot of kids, but they're on social assistance, so they're not working.
That's correct.
What it almost, I mean, I don't know, and I'm asking you, it seems like some of the migrants are taking social services. They're not going to provide social services to Swedes. Do you think that economics is really going to work out? Like it's costing a lot of money to take care of the migrants, isn't it?
It does, but it's not easy for them to find a job either.
Why do you think they're coming to Sweden? That's very far away. Do you think it's because Sweden is so generous with welfare?
Are you trying to get me to answer your way, or?
You say whatever you want. Tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
I mean, of course, you read in the magazines all about, the taking our money and works and all that, but it's not easy to get work here. And I think that most of them, if they want to have a job. But I mean, if you don't know the language and all that, it's not that easy.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're counting on them to take care of you when you're older, right?
But they will. Because I don't think we will be enough Swedish people to do it.
Can you tell me the best way it's changing Sweden and the worst way it's changing Sweden?
The best way is, I think it's always good to have a mixed culture. How otherwise would we have pizza and pasta in the first place in Sweden? The worst way is probably that the politicians doesn't do it well. They should have been, provided them better.
Now, when I'm from Canada and we think of Sweden, we think of a beautiful, progressive country, and we think of women's rights. But I understand that the number of rapes in Sweden is extremely high. Is that true?
Not what I heard. It's not more than before. During the summer you can have drunk Swedish men as well to do stupid things.
And how about crime in general? Is that a problem?
I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky, but I'm fine.
I want to ask you a question. Are you afraid of being called racist if you criticize migrants? Are you afraid of that?
No, because I'm probably not that aggressive when I criticize, but of course can happen, but I always tell what I want to say, and so far, no problems.
Have you followed the news out of Germany on New Year's Eve in Cologne?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you think of that?
It's not nice, but still, I think it's still the politicians, they don't do it well. I mean, the police does what they're told, and so I think still, politicians, if they inform people better, I don't think we would have that problems.
So you think that that rape and sexual assault, it's just Sweden and Germany has to do a better job?
Yeah, because if you give them good values in school and whatever, I think it would have been better. And still, it's easy to blow up because it happens with immigrants, but it happens in other cultures as well.
How do you feel when you see a woman wearing a niqab, like just the little slit for the eyes? I mean, you're a modern Swedish woman.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see another woman wearing that?
As long as it's by free choice, I have no problem with it.
And how would you know if it's by free choice?
I have no clue.
Does it bother you? Do you have any children yourself? Would you want your daughter to dress like
I don't have any children, but a lot of friends have children, and let's say if I would have a friend with a daughter and she wanted to convert and she truly believes it, I will be fine with it. But if somebody forced her, I wouldn't be fine.
Do you feel like we're losing ground on gay rights and women's rights?
Hopefully not. I have a lot of gay friends, and they have the same problems that they had before. I think it's better now.
I think the world is better now in the West, but I've talked to a number of Somali men here and Macedonian Muslim men. They don't like gays at all.
No, but they don't do an extreme about it. I mean, look at Russia. I think it's worse there because the regime is against it. Here it's people, so I think it's a big difference.
Is there a limit to the number of Muslim migrants Sweden can take?
No.
So
No, I mean, it doesn't
a million a year?
I don't think.
Like that's what Germany's
I
taking.
don't think it will happen. Not a million per year.
What happens if there were more Muslim migrants than there are Swedes? Is that okay?
As long as they follow the law and try to do the best and work hard, why not?
So you have no problem with Swedes being a minority in Sweden?
No.
I
Actually not. As long as it's a good country and you find work and the nature is still beautiful and the weather is like it is, and
you don't have any kids anyways, right? That's someone else's problem.
No, it's not anybody else's problem. As long as people are nice to each other, it doesn't matter where you live.
I mean, if there were 10 million Somalis here and then they brought in Somali-style law, it wouldn't be Sweden anymore if they brought in Sharia law.
No, I still don't think it will happen. I'm quite sure.
You've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That woman is Sweden personified.
Thanks very much. I recorded that 10 years ago. You can tell because I'm 10 years handsomer now. But I haven't forgot a word she said. Mm-hmm. And Malmo was, just a generation ago, it was a leading industrial city in Sweden. And more than that, it was Swedish. It was like 95% Swedish. Yeah. And now, Rosengard, I tell you again, that was the only white woman I saw all day. So I ran up to her. Like, I'm not going to show more vids from my trip to Malmo, but there were people born and raised in Malmo who are for Sharia law, for banning booze, banning gays, banning women from being uncovered. They were born in Sweden now. And what happens when, and so what's happening in Malmo, why couldn't it happen in Toronto? Is there something special about Toronto? You know, you don't need to be sacked like Constantinople was. You can open the gates to the city. You don't have to burst through the gates if you're willing to open them voluntarily. That's Toronto's future if we continue with mass immigration.
You know, Ezra, that was a fascinating interview. You asked all the right questions and all the important questions. And what I thought was astounding with so many of her answers was this Pollyanna approach. Everything's going to be okay if my daughter wanted to convert to Islam and have to wear niqab or burqa. As long as she wanted to, that's okay. And no limits on immigration from people from perhaps countries that are culturally incompatible. And, you know, it reminded me of the most astonishing flag I saw on display at Walk with Israel yesterday, Ezra, where the pro-Hamas were demonstrating. They had all kinds of flags. The vast majority were Palestinian flags. Only one Canadian flag. There was a fellow wearing a Canadian flag as a cape. But somebody was displaying the rainbow pride flag.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And I thought, this is astonishing. It's like, it's the old saying, it's almost like chickens for KFC. And again, like if that person, assuming they're part of that community, if they went to Gaza and were openly gay or lesbian or bi or trans, whatever the descriptor is, you know how that ends, Ezra. You're brought up to the top of a rooftop and you're thrown to your death. That is the preferred method of execution. And, you know, on the flip side of her, I remember when Efren and I, on an Al-Quds Day march, we encountered a guy who is now living in Canada. He bragged about not taking an oath to the Queen, and then went on and on about it's just a matter of time.
Do we have that vid? That vid has been cut and bootlegged 1,000 times on social media because it's so astonishingly honest. It really is the counterpart to this woman.
And what's fascinating,
Olivia, can you grab the one from Al-Quds?
Yeah, I won't give anything away until we get
probably the most famous clip Rebel News has ever published.
It's amazing, Ezra. The honesty is amazing, and you know it's really, when our viewers watch this, see from time to time there are handlers trying to get this guy to shut the hell up.
Right, because he was giving away the game.
That's
Looks like we've got the video on standby. Let's take a look at it. You've probably seen this video many times. So many people cut it and paste it and upload it because it's astonishing. Let's take a look.
What would happen to a gay couple in Gaza?
Executed according to Islamic law. Islam doesn't endorse gayism. Islam doesn't endorse homosexuality.
Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will. You know, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump, right? By 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then? We owe our allegiance and our loyalty first and foremost to our religion, not to the Queen, to be honest. When I went for my so-called oath, I was silent, I didn't say anything. It was your responsibility to make sure you got it out of me. So when I didn't say anything, I'm not liable to any.
You know, Ezra, the only regret I have about that interview, sometimes you think about the killer question after it's done. And what I would have asked him when he was bragging about killing gay people and that it's not compatible with Sharia law, I should have asked him, are you a father? Because I really suspect he was. And then I would say, sir, if, God forbid, one of your children came out of the closet, they said, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, would you want them executed? And I really fear, Ezra, that even though a parent's love for their son or daughter should be unconditional, I think that maniac would say, yeah, he's got it, or she's got to go.
Now, you call him a maniac, but really, I mean, he wasn't screaming.
No.
He was high energy and he was engaging. But to call him a maniac implies a mental illness. It's like saying Hitler was mad, Hitler was crazy. Yeah, you can try and ascribe it to madness or craziness, but it's actually a full-fledged philosophy and ideology. And I think he was actually just saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
And you know, I think that guy you were talking to is I mean, obviously he's at an Al-Quds Day event, so he's anti-Semitic. Al-Quds Day is an officially anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish holiday created by the Islamic Republic of Iran to foment discord in the West. So obviously he was more than just an ordinary guy if he was at that event. But the level of extremism that the new Hamas protesters have is something altogether new. Like, for example, going to, if we can have the clip, I don't know if you guys can find it, of the smoke bomb outside Cafe Landwehr. There was a coffee shop bakery that was opened in Berlin about 100 years ago called Cafe Landwehr, run by some Jews. Became a very popular coffee shop. Obviously, when Hitler came in, Cafe Landwehr had to run away. And they did, and they survived, and they've reopened. They're now a chain, and there's about a half a dozen Cafe Landwehrs open in Toronto. And I love them, by the way. I mean, I just like that food. It's a little bit European. There's some Middle Eastern food. I just think it's great coffee and tea. And they have these patios. And here, let me show you. This is from Karim Assad. With the smoke bomb driving out the customers. And by the way, you'll see in this brief clip, it's a Jewish-themed restaurant, but the people who work there, it's Toronto. If you're staffing your coffee shop, you've got people of every race and creed. The customers there, it's not a Jews-only place. It's just another coffee shop. Take a look at what these Hamas extremists did. Take a look. And the cops just standing there. The cops just standing there. Not doing a thing. Not doing a thing. The cops doing nothing. The cops are providing security to Hamas. The cops are the concierges to Hamas. Like these dopey like, what even is their purpose? Like I say, if you think of them as upholding the law, you'll realize they're not fit for purpose. But if you realize that they're to assist Hamas, then it all makes sense.
Ezra, it's worse than you think. That fellow right there, the cop in the black bicycle helmet, that is Officer Chang, badge number 7724. He's doing the professional wrestling referee warning. Now cut it out or I'm going to warn you again. That is this very same officer, Ezra, that in April of 2024, April 7th, as a matter of fact, the 6-month vigil for the massacre from October 7th, 2023, who, without any warning, without any explanation, after he saw Efren and I being assaulted by the pro-Hamas mobsters at Nathan Phillips Square, where Pierre Poilievre was leading the vigil, 2,500 people were in the square, I was arrested. He smashed my phone. We have video of that, if Olivia or Efren can find it. And I was arrested on what charge? Trespassing, literally in the public square, practicing journalism in the public interest while these Hamasos, as I like to call them, were chanting genocide at a vigil, physically assaulted us. And when the cops came, what a fool I was, Ezra. I said, okay, they crossed the line. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I crossed the line. My very presence was instigating the mob to get even further violent. Much easier to arrest me than a couple of dozen Hamas adherents. That is the same guy, Officer Chang. And by the way, lighting off those smoke bombs, that's illegal.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Let's take a look at the clip. I think our team has it.
Okay.
So this is Officer Chang arresting you. Same Officer Chang who was giving that fake warn. Hey guys, don't make me warn you again. I know you had the clip of it once there. I just saw it on the preview screen there. Yeah.
Don't touch me. Hey, watch your hands. We have your hands. Watch your hands. Watch your hands. Don't put your hands on me. I want to make sure. Don't put your hands on me.
They can chant genocide in the street, and I can't cover that. Obey your oath, officer. Obey your oath. Will you listen? If I'm on the other arrest, get your hands off. Okay, then I will take. Okay, put your phone down. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for refusing to leave. Okay? Refusing to leave the wagon, Mr. Man. Goodbye. Efren, are you catching this?
Yeah.
Once again, you can have people chant genocide in the streets of our democracy.
You're under arrest for refusing to leave premises, okay, Mr.
It's a public place. This is literally the public square. This is
I've
literally.
asked you numerous times. I try to be as nice as possible. Right? Not only trespass authority, okay?
You can have. They assaulted me and you did nothing. They assaulted me and you did nothing.
Did they charge you with anything, or did they let you go in this case?
Oh no, that's one of the cases we had to fight, and we did successfully because eventually the case was dropped because of no reasonable grounds for prosecution. Ezra, and I just want to quickly say about that chanting of genocide in the streets that we've seen for 19 months now, that is contrary to Section 319 of the Criminal Code. The police do nothing. Actually, I correct myself, on cold days they'll deliver coffee and Timbits to the Hamas people. I want to ask you this, Ezra. If this was any other identifiable group other than Jews, if this was people, a mob gathering, death to black people, death to gay people, would that be tolerated in this city for 19 months?
Well, I know it wouldn't, because there's some very famous legal precedents in this country, Bill Walcott being one of the defendants, who are anti-gay, ratcheted up to 10. And when the police are all over that, if you burn rubber on one of those rainbow crosswalks, the police will have a full-scale investigation into that.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, the Charlottesville hate fest of a decade ago, we've had Charlottesville anti-Semitic hate fest every week for a year and a half, and the police are the defenders of Hamas. And that's what I saw this weekend at the March for Israel. I see a couple of super chats come in. I want to make sure we don't forget them.
Okay.
Alex Greer chips in $7. Thank you very much for that. And Alex Greer, another $2.79, who says, well said, Ezra and David. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
for your support. And I think I've got those. All right. Well, we spent a lot of time on that Swedish clip, but I just remember being so demoralized by her. And, you know, obviously she's not a political person, but there's a fatalism there, and well. But imagine that. Like, I don't know that much about the Swedes. The Swedes and the Norwegians and the Danish, all those countries are really close to each other. I know that they all descend from the Vikings. In fact, the Vikings came much further south and much further west. Vikings actually came to Newfoundland. If you've ever been to Lanceau Meadows, they were there 1,000 years ago. 500 years before Columbus. That's not some conspiracy theory. You can see the ruins of the Viking settlement in Landsover Meadows. The Vikings were the most ferocious people around. And I don't know if you know how the Vikings operated. They would sack and pillage towns. And in fact, Kipling wrote a poem about them. Can you forgive me?
I know you love Kipling.
He wrote a poem called the Dane-geld. And the Dane-geld is what they called this Viking ransom demand. Do you know this at all? So let me just get a copy of it here. Dane-geld, Kipling. I'm just going to read it. I don't have it from memory, of course. Here we go. It is always a temptation to an armed and agile nation to call upon a neighbor and to say, we invaded you last night, we are quite prepared to fight unless you pay us cash to go away. It's almost like a limerick. So this is the Vikings. And that is called asking for Dane-geld. And the people who ask it explain that you've only to pay him the Dane-geld and then you'll get rid of the Dane. That was the thinking. Look, don't burn the town down, don't rape the women, don't kill us. We'll just give you the money that you would take and just leave us alone. That was called the Dane-geld. That's what they called paying off the Vikings. I'll read just a little bit more. It's a great poem, and I'm almost done. It's always a temptation for a rich and lazy nation to puff and look important and to say that we know we should defeat you. We have not the time to meet you. We will therefore pay you cash to go away. It's got a rhythm to it, doesn't it? This is Kipling. And that is called paying the Dane-geld. But we've proved it again and again that if once you have paid him the Dane-geld, you'll never get rid of the Dane. It's wrong to put temptation in the path of any nation for fear they should succumb and go astray. So when you are requested to pay up or be molested, you will find a better policy to say, we never pay anyone Dane-geld, no matter how trifling the cost. For the end of that game is oppression and shame, and the nation that plays it is lost. So that's Rudyard Kipling saying, don't pay ransoms, don't pay shakedowns, stand firm. If you pay an extortionist, you'll pay him again and again. I think that's good advice for nations and for people. But imagine the ferocious, audacious, violent people they're talking about. They're talking about the Swedes.
Yes.
And the Danes and the Norwegians, and I don't know exactly where the delineation was. I was in the Isle of Man. The Vikings used to rule that place. Yeah, I'm talking in the UK. Imagine Vikings going back centuries, going back millennia. Centuries of Viking blood. One link in the chain to another, one generation after the other, and it ends not with a bang, but with a whimper. That woman in Rosengard, Malmo, saying, oh, well, I don't have any children. The line ends with me. I know some friends, and if they convert and if they change, there's no limit to foreign. I can only imagine. I don't know much about Vikings. I never watched any of the Viking TV series. I know they're popular. How can the country that produced the most ferocious, bloodthirsty people end with such a liberal whimper, David?
It's amazing. Well, first of all, that poem, very highbrow. Ezra, as you know, most of the poetry I consume begin with the opening stanza of Hickory Dickory Dock. But seriously, folks, if you were to resurrect those Vikings from millennia ago and you brought them to Sweden, to Denmark, what have you, what do you think they would say? I don't think they believe their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, we used to be a conquering tribe, and now people are voluntarily giving up their country because, in her words, well, Swedish women aren't having children. Well, listen, ladies, get busy. Swedes don't want to do certain jobs, but you poked a hole in that by showing how many Somalian Swedes were on social assistance. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, about 20 years ago, Mark Stein, his brilliant book, America Alone, with all the Western democracy, except for the United States, a birth rate of under 2.0, which means that you are not naturally replenishing your population unless you, depend on immigration. I would say, okay, that's fine, but we have to have a filter, I think, to make sure that newcomers to Western democracies are simpatico with Western values. And when you see people advocating Sharia law, when you see people advocating genocide for a certain group of people, clearly that's not the case. And to your earlier point, you're going to bring Gazans in? You're going to effectively throw gasoline on the fire? This is madness. This is our own Malmo event, Ezra.
Yeah, and we need people who are going to take care of us, sister. You don't understand who's taking care of whom. You know, I think if you brought back one of those bloodthirsty Vikings from 1,000 years ago, he would look around and he would say, "Who is this mighty king who invaded us? Who was it who finally subdued the great Vikings?" And then he would be told, "No, we opened the gates for them. We know." And he wouldn't believe it. He said, no, that can't be. That can't be. And I'm trying to think, has any civilization in history simply said, hey, foreign civilizations, just come in en masse? I mean, there were great metropolises. Rome itself was the saying, all roads lead to Rome. London, in the great age of exploration, ships coming and going. But that's very different than saying move people en masse to just live here. Mm-hmm. It's not even this. I mean, I guess you could look at it from a First Nations point of view. They were wiped out. Yeah. I mean, from the European point of view, they were settlers. They settled and built the modern Americas, and that's very true. But it's also true that there were some folks here. And if you read, can you put on the screen Bernal Diaz, Conquest of the New World? I think it's probably my favorite history book I've ever read. Can you throw that on the screen? It's the author is Bernal-Diaz, Bernal Diaz del Castillo Reyes, The Conquest of New Spain. And I have to tell you, this book was a diary written by, let me read the Google Books summary of it. Bernal Diaz de Castillo, born 1492, died 1584, was a foot soldier in the army of Mexico's conqueror, Hernan Cortez. You've heard of Cortez.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And participated in the campaigns that led to the fall of the Aztec Empire in 1521. Absolutely astonishing, amazing. This 1928 translation of his journals derives from the 1904 edition by the Mexican historian Genaro Garcia, yada yada. Written as a corrective to accounts that overemphasize Cortez's exploits, Diaz's epic focuses on the experience of the common soldier. The most complete contemporary chronicle of the Mexican conquest, this important blah, blah, blah. It's called The History of the Conquest of New Spain. It's by Bernal Diaz. Every page, unbelievable until you realize it's not fiction, it's history. There's only a few hundred of these men that subdued an entire Aztec empire. Imagine opening the door to an invading civilization. The Aztecs tried to fight. They were tricked. They obviously didn't have firearms. They didn't know what horses were. When they first saw conquistadors on horses, they thought it was one creature. Have you ever seen the movie Apocalypto?
No, I haven't.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about on the live stream.
I'll watch it next weekend.
Can we play a little bit of the trailer of that? I know we are so far afield, but Tenochtitlan, which was the capital city, must have seemed impenetrable, but then invaders came. I just can't think of any other period of time when not just a civilization, but an apex civilization, the mightiest civilizations, would throw open the gates. Like, I understand the Aztecs being invaded. They had no chance against Cortez. I recommend the book. They had no chance. But, and Rome, maybe Rome tells the story. It was partly from invasions and partly it was from national suicide. But I can't think of any comparison to what the West is doing. And You don't even have to go back and ask what the Vikings would have thought. What would Winston Churchill have thought? What would John F. Kennedy have thought?
Yeah.
Anyhow, can I show you a little bit of Apocalypto just because it's such a beautiful movie? And it's a beautiful movie. It's by Mel Gibson. It's in completely foreign language. And the reason I think Mel Gibson made this movie is the last 30 seconds. Anyway, can I show a little bit of the trailer? Can we show some of the trailer?
Yes.
It's off topic, but I think that's half the fun. Go ahead. It's called Apocalypto. Terrifying. I love Mel Gibson. He's the best. What would Tenochtitlan look like in 1491, let's say, or the year before the Spanish came? What would it have been like, and what would it have been like the moment of contact? This is very far afield from our conversation. This is just one of my favorite movies of all time. Have you seen that?
Oh, I haven't, but now I have two recommendations from you: Apocalypto, and I swear, folks, Angry Birds.
I did not want to see Angry Birds. I thought, I don't want to see a movie based on a stupid video game. But that is the most right-wing movie I've ever seen in my life. So Apocalypto is a bunch of things. It's an imagination of what life was like in those giant pyramids. Now, they're not actually giant pyramids compared to the Egyptian pyramids. But what did they do in those pyramids? Do you know what they did?
Sacrifices?
They sacrificed by the thousand. Oof. There was war and slavery, and they would capture their enemies, and they would sacrifice them alive. The blood would run down the pyramids. It's such a horrific show. It's rated R, I'm sure, without even checking. I know that. And I'll give it away because it's not actually essential to the movie, but the last 30 seconds of it. Oh, and an amazing chase scene. How do you have an amazing chase scene, in pre-Columbian America with no vehicles? But just the chase scene is just first-rate filmmaking. And I was thinking, what's Mel Gibson doing here? Why does he care? He showed how brutal life was. How red in tooth and claw it was. And then the last 30 seconds of the movie are Spanish ships with the cross on the sails coming ashore with the cross.
Wow.
And it was a reminder of, if you think Christianity is brutal, even in its worst moments, you don't understand what it replaced. Now that was an invasion that raised the spiritual and moral and safety. They talk about life before society is nasty, brutish, and short. I think it was Hobbes who said that. And we created a social contract where we would give the government a monopoly of violence, and we wouldn't just kill each other all the time. That's what life was like before the conquistadors came. And the conquistadors in 2025, David, they don't come ashore with ships and muskets and cannons. They just walk right in the door. And they don't elevate us from a war of all against all. They bring that war of all against all. I think that it was too many generations ago that we stopped fighting. We fought the last fight. And now we somehow think that the natural state of the world is peace, that the natural state of man is prosperity and happiness and freedom, when in fact, if you look at the stretch of time, that's an anomaly. Throughout the sweep of history, it's been pain and violence and injustice and unfreedom and poverty. And it's not just technology that has improved life. It's the structures of freedom rooted in the liberal society, rooted in Christianity in large part. And we are throwing that away. That woman, that Swede, is throwing. It's like the peasant who finds a pearl on the beach and doesn't know its worth and throws it back into the sea. She doesn't realize how many generations it took to strengthen Sweden, to protect Sweden, and build and make it such a lovable place. And she's just going to give it away, because someone's going to mop up the hospital room that she dies in. I don't know, I mishmashed a lot of different things
No,
together
not at
there.
all. But Ezra, the question arises, do you think when it comes to Canada, when it comes to Sweden, the Western world, are we actually watching in slow motion our extinction event, or is there a way to course correct this?
Well, there's a reason why Donald Trump won. One in 2016 and one in 2024. He said he would build a wall.
Yep.
That's what he said in 2016. In 2024, he would say he would deport them. And he has done all you can possibly do. He's been stymied by the courts.
Yep.
But number one rule of holes, when you're in a hole, stop digging. So first thing is he stopped the daily invasions, like by 95%.
Oh, yeah. It's remarkable.
Number two, he's doing deportations. But he's, 10, 15 million people came in under Biden's watch. The courts are trying to run out the clock. That's one thing. And to bring value and meaning to your passport again, it's the opposite of what's being done in Canada and Ireland. I think I told you I was in the United Kingdom for a special by-election they had in the 16th safest Labour riding in the country. There's hundreds of MPs there. I forget how many there are. It's like 600 or something. And this was one of the most safe Labour seats. Labour won it with 53% last time. They had a by-election. The Reform UK party won. That's Nigel Farage's party. Came in first. And I was there, and their pamphlets, here's the slogan: freeze immigration, stop the boats. Freeze immigration, stop the boats. You had me at hello. Yeah. That is what flipped it over.
Yeah.
There were other promises too, but they were so far behind issue number one. The only question, is it too late? Ireland, it's the same thing. The Netherlands, it's the same thing. Germany, maybe it's the same thing. Their new chancellor, I don't quite know where he stands. I think Europe and the West are waking up, but is it too late? And will there be the necessary strength and even brutality to undo what has been done? And I don't mean brutality in a violent sense, but when you are deporting people, you're deporting people who have made friends and who have put some roots down. And that requires a bit of cold heart. But if someone came into the country illegally, do you have the cold enough heart to enforce the law? Or are you like that lady in Sweden who says, oh well, as long as Sweden is a lovely place and the birds are chirping, it'll always be home. No, sister, Sweden is not Sweden because of some rocks and some birds. Yeah. It's Sweden because of generations of Swedes. There is something Swedish about Sweden. It's not just a hotel room. And that concept of nationalism, you can't put someone on a plane for 12 hours and suddenly think that by setting their feet down on the ground, they're suddenly going to become a liberal who loves Canada, loves America, loves Britain, loves Sweden. Yeah, I'm ranting a little bit. There's some super chats here. Let me read them. Karen Lesiak, $28. Love you guys. Thank you for bringing Canadians the truth. By the way, Ezra, love your book, Librano. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think we missed another super chat, or maybe it was a Rumble rant from Laura, $7. Keep up the real journalism. You betcha. I think I see a video from Chris Dacey. Sorry, can we play the Chris Dacey video? I haven't seen it yet, but it looks interesting. It looks like Chrystia Freeland, who's used to arresting reporters like David she doesn't like, maybe up to her old tricks again. Let's take a look. This is from our friend Chris Dacey at Dacey Media.
Oh, no.
She just saw us, and it looks like she's going to run away. Chrystia Freeland just turned, saw us. It appears as though she's scared. Someone on the phone now. We just want to speak to our elected officials.
This is a secure area. Diaspora who live in fear. since a year and a half.
Why are the police stopping her?
Chrystia Freeland running from questions.
Why are the police stopping her from asking questions? What does it mean to call it a secure area?
She refused accountability. This is our elected official.
Why are the police running errands for her? Chris Dacey, who filmed that, should be lucky that his bank accounts wasn't seized.
Yeah.
Why did police stop Alexa? Alexa is clearly harmless. Her questions are just questions. They know her. She's no threat. Why did the police intervene?
You know, it speaks to the bigger question of how independent media is treated these days, Ezra. I think you had the line of 2024 when we went to Bathurst and Shepherd to cover the pro-Hamas people spewing their vile and venom and genocidal chants. And I remember a cop saying to you, oh, you can't be here. You have to go to the free speech zone. Remember that? And you had a brilliant comeback. Sorry, mate, the free speech zone is Canada. But it isn't, clearly. Yeah. In a public space with elected officials, and they know who Chris Dacey is, they certainly know who Alexa Lavoie is, they know who I am, they know we mean no harm, and yet, you know, the RCMP, I'm not sure which police service that was, maybe Ottawa, they're saying this is a secure area? What are you talking about, a secure area?
Well, it's a double standard. So the Hamas types who are foreign nationals wearing masks, shouting venom at Jews who had a parade permit in a Jewish neighborhood, trespassing in some cases, they're fine. But Alexa Lavoie asking a question is not fine. Me asking, so there is free speech if you're with Hamas, but not if you're with Rebel News.
And Ezra, to compare apples to apples here, that very same corner, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, there was an area, a park, where the police said, okay, for the pro-Hamas people, this is your designated protest zone. They violated that right away. We got there almost an hour and a half before the walk began. They were already set up at Bathurst and Shepherd. I was asking police, why aren't you enforcing this? And nothing. And another double standard I want to point out, because this is disturbing. We saw a fellow brandishing a hand grenade. I really believe it's a replica hand grenade, but that's not the point.
Right.
You want to check. And I said to the police, and we have it on camera, Avery Armstrong was recording it, excuse me, officers, are you going to check that that is real or not? And by the way, even if it isn't real, what is the message there?
Yeah.
You know, you're within throwing distance away from tens of thousands of people.
Is this it here?
This is Chief Demkew. I was asking about the double standards, and you can see he ran away into his SUV. And I can tell you this, Ezra, again, to compare apples to apples, Avery Armstrong and I, a week ago Saturday, we were at Lawrence and Midland in Scarborough, and some wannabe gangbanger walked past us as we were doing filming, and he brandished the handle of his handgun. Well, we phoned 911 right away. You know what? I believe 5 police cruisers responded. They took our statements. They looked at our video. You know, and we don't even know if that was a replica handgun or not. But the point is, they took it seriously with this masked pro-Hamas guy with a hand grenade. Oh, no, he gets the free reign, don't bug us.
You know what? They were making a gamble with Jewish lives as the bounty. They were saying, all right, path of least resistance is let it go, because if I ask to see it, at the very least, I've got some paperwork issues, but I might be criticized by the DEI police chief, who's obviously siding with Hamas. So, boy, it sure is fishy to see a grenade. I am a cop. This is a high security event. There's thousands of Jews here. That grenade, if it's real and if it's used, could cause theoretically 12 people to be murdered. I'm gonna pretend I didn't see it, because that's what I think the chief wants.
And you know what's important to point out? It's not like this was a massive pro-Hamas 20,000 demonstrators. There was maybe 100 or so. There were way more police that day, I would argue, because of the egregious event that happened in Washington, D.C. last week. So this idea, hey, we're outnumbered, what can we do?
The police could end all of this in every city in one day. The University of Calgary had one of these anti-Semitic encampments. It was cleared in one day. There is no city in Canada, even Montreal, that could not be handled if the police made the decision to do so. But in every city, they've decided not to. David, I look at the clock on the wall. It says 2:06. Thanks for letting me take over the live stream, show you a bunch of movies unrelated to anything, talk about Mel Gibson, read a little Kipling, show an old-fashioned interview with someone 10 years ago in Sweden. But I appreciate you letting me come in here, and thanks for being there yesterday at the Walk with Israel. Last word to you.
I just want to say, Ezra, thank you for not spoiling the ending to Angry Birds.
You know, I hate movies that are based on video games. I think, am I that much of a chump? I'm going to pay to see it. Angry Birds is so good. First of all, it's so funny. Oh my God, the Lake of Wisdom scene. I've watched that 10 times, and I laugh every time. David, you're going to love this. This is going to be your favorite new movie.
Wow.
But when was the last time you saw a movie that was skeptical of refugees and immigration? Because the pigs are coming over to the birds and saying, oh, we're your friends. and only the Angry Bird says, guys, there's something not right about this. It is such a good movie.
Okay. No more spoilers.
You know what? Will you promise me you'll see Angry Birds? It's a great show. All right, my friends. Thanks to Olivia and Ephron, who have been working the show here, and everybody else. From us here at Rebel. And by the way, we're going to have a longer report on the Walk with Israel tonight on the Ezra Levant Show. So tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern for that. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, good night, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.
So I'm currently in front of the West Block. I don't know if you can see behind me, there is a bunch of anti-Israel protesters, and they just splashed a lot of fake blood on the ground and on them. As you can see, they are trying to block my camera, but doesn't really matter. So as you know, today is the first Parliament sitting, and today and tomorrow the King will be in Ottawa. So we will be here to report on the story, and as you can see, like some people like them behind me. So arms embargo! We demand an arms embargo! Arms embargo! Arms embargo! Arms embargo! Arms embargo! Arms embargo right now! Arms embargo right now! Arms embargo right now! Arms embargo right now! Connie, hands are red! 200,000 people killed! 200,000 people killed! Liberals, your hands are red!